let's take a trip to the loony bin that is Washington, D.C. right now and see what's happening up on Capitol Hill, shall we? Now, what a scene. Before we even get in the building, we're passing by this crowd of congressional staffers calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. Tell you what, the masks sure are a nice touch, aren't they? But then we go into the building where the real action, my friends, is taking place. Let's go to a congressional hearing with U.S. Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas, who's also traveled up the hill to defend what, well, anyone who spends time watching this program will say is the indefensible. That is to say, the situation at the U.S. southern border, which is seeing 2 or 3 million people a year just waltz into the United States from God knows where. Here's a few of them on the road somewhere in Central America giving thanks to the man who essentially invited them in. But according to Mayorkas, everything is fine.
So the situation at the border, you're saying, is not a disaster?
That is correct.
America certainly doesn't need a wall.
Do you believe that a border wall is part of the answer? Yes or no?
No.
No.
And don't worry, there's certainly no threat of terrorists sneaking in, though as we covered last week, there absolutely is.
Do you think that millions of people crossing our border illegally creates the risk of a terrorist attack in our country?
Senator, I think that the men and women of the Department of Homeland Security do an extraordinary job of ensuring the safety and security.
That wasn't the question I asked. I said, do you think that millions of people crossing our border illegally every year, 2.5 million last year, creates the risk of a terrorist? With what's going on in the world, people coming from more than 100 different countries crossing here illegally, you don't even know how many of them are still here. You came here today without that information. Do you think that creates a risk of a terrorist attack in our country?
Senator, you mischaracterized my testimony.
Yes or no? Do you think that creates millions of people come here, are here illegally? We're not even talking about the gotaways. How many gotaways are in our country here illegally? Does that create the risk of a terrorist attack in our country?
And hell, it turns out the guy doesn't even know how many illegals are in the U.S.
Secretary Mayorkas, how many people have entered the country illegally across our southern border since the Biden administration took office? A number.
Senator, it's over 6 million encounters at our southern border.
And how many of those 6 million are still in the country?
Senator, I can get you that information.
So do you know?
Senator, I don't want to.
Would you provide us with a number of how many of those 6 million that crossed our border illegally are still in the country?
I would be pleased to provide you with any data that you request.
And who better to bring some clarity to all of this than our friend John Kennedy from Louisiana, who wasn't having a bar of it.
It's my time, Madam Chair, and I'm going to use it the way I want.
Your time is expired.
Well, you let others go on. Here's what I think, Mr. Secretary. I think you're a smart guy. Now, there are only one or two things going on here. Either you're not qualified to manage a Costco food court, or you believe in open borders. I think it's the latter.
Senator Kennedy, your time has expired. Thank you.
I would just say the following two things. Number one, you're 0 for 2 on that. You're inaccurate in both respects, number one. And I'd like the record to reflect that 60 minutes is not 45 minutes, because I can't seem to answer a question without being interrupted. I just wanted to make that comment.
Ah, yes, another wonderful day for America's public servants, standing up for America's interests.